Okay, hi guys. Sorry, I got cut off by that 5 minute limit. I'll try to make it short. We were talking last time about this guy, right? Camilo de Cavour, and how he had provoked or had asked Napoleon to help him with in a war with Austria, and then Napoleon suddenly kind of flakes out and he's stuck fighting the war, but ends up getting a little bit of what he wanted anyway. But the end result was that nationalism spread all throughout Italy, especially in the south, where the southern states, people were more poor and working class. And so out of the south, we get this guy named Giuseppe Garibaldi. Okay, Giuseppe Garibaldi is a really interesting character. He's from southern Italy. He is not a nobleman. He is actually a liberal nationalist. Okay, so he's a man of the people. And previously, he had supported. You probably read about him, Giuseppe Mazzini. So Giuseppe Mazzini was the nationalist he was very young and also a liberal nationalist leader, and had created this organization called Young Italy. And people saw him as this sort of like this. Both Giuseppe's Garibaldi and Mazzini were seen as true Italian patriots who wanted actual unity for Italy, no real strings attached. So, he raises this army of 1,000 red shirts who were all volunteers because of their uniform. And I'm talking about Garibaldi here, of course. And he raises this army and he ends up taking over this kingdom called the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies in 1860. Notice the date. It's a year before the outbreak of the Civil War. Garibaldi was such an impressive figure and such a good leader and fighter that Abraham Lincoln actually wrote to him and asked him if he would be willing to come to America and lead part of the Union Army. But Garibaldi said no, he was too busy in Italy. Anyway, Garibaldi goes into Naples after that with his army that he had accumulated even more. And he goes into Naples and he seems to be on this winning streak. And at this point, he captures the attention of Camilo Cavour. So Camilo Cavour is looking at him and he's like, interesting. He seems to be a man who knows what he's doing and he's a good leader, and that's actually kind of what we need. So at this point, Cavour comes back, right? He's from the north up here, right, in Italy. And he's like, it's time to pick up the fight again. Turns out, we need to finish some of this unfinished business from that time that the war ended abruptly because Napoleon pulled out of it. And so he wants unity. Okay, this is the important thing. Cavour is a nobleman, and while he's liberal-minded, he's still an aristocrat. So he wants unity. He's a nationalist, and he wants unity. He does not want a republic. He wants a monarchy because that way he gets to keep his job, and so does the King Victor Emmanuel. So when Garibaldi picks up his army, his southern army, and they start to march into Rome, suddenly Cavour is afraid. He thinks, oh gosh, now the French are going to come in and invade because Rome was under French protection. And so he thinks, well, this Garibaldi guy's a good leader and he's pretty impressive, but I don't want him to, invite trouble from the French. So anyway, this is Garibaldi. He actually looks a lot like most guys did back in the 1860s. And he's a really important figure in the unification of Italy. Okay, so Cavour raises his army as well, and he goes down south and he confronts Garibaldi in Naples. So here we have a meeting between two nationalists, one an aristocrat, Cavour, from the north, one a southerner, a man of the people. He's not an aristocrat. And but they both have a common goal, unity. The only difference is Camilo Cavour wants a unified Italy with a king. Garibaldi wants a unified Italy as a republic. So which is it going to be? Is it going to be the Republic of Italy or the Kingdom of Italy? So Garibaldi is the one who has to make the choice, because when it comes down to it, Cavour has the stronger army and he can actually get the French on his side if he really wants to. So Garibaldi realizes, I'm faced with this choice. I can either have unity under a monarchy and just deal with the fact that we have a king, but at least would be united, or I could end up going to civil war, take Italy into civil war with the North, and we'll never have a unified Italy at all. We might lose everything. So Garibaldi gives in, and he gives Cavour what he wants. At that moment, March 17th, 1861, Italy is proclaimed a unified kingdom. Later on in 1866, they will annex Venice from Austria, and then later on they will also get Rome in 1870, Rome being the capital. Okay, like I said, Garibaldi gives into Cavour. He actually ends up retiring and goes off into the countryside. He feels like his job is done. Perhaps he didn't get the Republic, but he got Italy. He helped to get Italy unified. Um, Piedmont, however, was the central authority of Italy. And the king of Italy was none other than Victor Emmanuel. Okay, like I said, later on they'll annex these other parts, and when Rome is proclaimed the capital city, Italy as we know it today is born. So here you have a cartoon. Notice what's happening here. The guy wearing the crown and putting on the boot is Victor Emmanuel. Who's the guy helping him put on the boot? Obviously, you guys can probably guess this. That's Garibaldi, the Southerner, and he's dressed like a peasant, right? Like not a aristocrat or a king. Italy, of course, famously being shaped like a boot. He's giving the boot and putting it on Victor Emmanuel's. And notice it's on his right leg, right being the wing of the conservative viewpoint, left being liberal. So he puts it on the right leg to show that Italy is a conservatively run kingdom. And notice the caption. It says, right leg in the boot at last. And Garibaldi says, if it won't go on, sire, try a little more powder. This is, of course, a reference to gunpowder, war, the threat of war itself. So here you have a map of Italy finally unified. And this is what the states used to look like. So the truth is, though, what actually happened once Italy was united? Was it happily ever after? Not really. Italy became unified, but they went through a lot of problems, a lot of economic problems, just like the United States did after the Civil War. And just like the United States, the North was wealthy and industrialized, and the South was poor and a little bit backwards. And so when you merge those two together, there's going to be very much like a culture and an economic clash. And it got so bad that many poor Italians, in particular from the southern states like Naples, decided to immigrate to, of course, the United States. So when you study US history, this exact same time period, the 1860s and 1870s, and this time period right around following the Civil War, you will read a lot about immigration. And if any of you have Italian ancestry, it's very likely that they maybe came to America around this time. So it's pretty ironic that right when Italy is finally unified, many Italians actually leave and head to the New World. So here's just like a little timeline. Once again, Victor Emmanuel, he is the leader of Piedmont starting in 1849 after the revolutions, and then Cavour becomes prime minister in 1852. He strikes his deal with Napoleon III in 58, immediately starts the Austrian War. He gives in the northern Italian states what's called a plebiscite, meaning like the people vote in order to unify. And then that same year, here comes Garibaldi from the south, basically gobbling up the boot. And finally, in 61, Italy is proclaimed a kingdom, and it's complete in 1870 with the final annexation of Venice and Rome. So there you have it. That is the overall history of Italy and how it was formed. So I hope that you guys find this really helpful, but the most important thing here to remember is that there were two types of nationalists in Italy, conservative-ish and liberal. And the ones who won, who got their way, were the conservatives, because of course Italy ends up being a kingdom. So that's it, guys. If you guys have any questions, don't forget, I'll be back in class soon. I'm going to let Tom Ritchie explain the unification of Germany to you because he did a really good video series. So that's coming up next. But again, realpolitik, Otto von Bismarck of Germany, a conservative who's going to get his way through nationalism and realpolitik, just like Camilo Cavour. I have a fun project coming up for you guys at the end of next week. So you will be able to use a lot of the information from this lecture. And don't forget to utilize my website. There's lots of other videos and stuff too. Okay, I'll see you guys soon. Have a great long weekend. How the heck do I stop this thing? Oh, there we go.